to introduce myself. Stoner Story Witch.
I'm gonna die on the hill that Kip is the hero of Heated Rivalry.
Hello and welcome to the Stoner Story Witch. My name is Kristyn, and I am so grateful to be hosting this podcast on the lands of the Chorotega people, colonially known as Costa Rica. I'm really excited to share today's conversation. It is one that I had with my best friend Jamie about the television show, the hit sensation, Heated Rivalry. And today's episode is also, I'm calling it a hybrid podcast because I'm including some voice memos from our teacher on secure attachment, Carmen Spagnola of the Numinous Network, longtime friend of the podcast, and she's going to be sharing some tidbits and reactions that she had around the show Heated Rivalry as well. So it has been so fun to edit this and to bring it out into the world in time for the full moon in Leo. The three questions that I really want to highlight that were kind of just the foundation of this episode, as well as my Severance Season 2 episode with Carmen Spagnola, are around what are the sensations or emotions that we had while we were engaging with the story. The second question is, what was a resourcing moment or maybe a favorite moment from the story? And the third question is just anything else you want to have witnessed. Carmen and I actually go into depth on a little bit more depth onto these three questions in our Severance episode together. And as I was editing today's podcast, I was like, it is worth playing that again. So I'm actually just going to take a moment here. You can fast forward a couple minutes if you wish, if you're like, I don't need to hear this. I'm familiar with the Numinous Network. I'm familiar with what these questions are and why they work. But I'm really sharing this episode with the intention of giving ourselves as a collective some time to engage in kind of our own feelings, sensations, resourcing from this story so that it can help us live the life that we would choose to live. And so hopefully there's a little bit of mirror neurons that can kind of get sparked by just a conversation between two friends that you get to listen to. That is certainly my hope. But more importantly, I would love for this podcast to be an inspiration for you to connect with other people in your world that may have watched Heated Rivalry or any other story that you have enjoyed, that you want to just kind of go a little bit deeper into and have a moment and offer yourself a sense of, secure attachment with yourself and with someone else. So anyway, all that to say, I'm going to include that little snippet of my conversation with Carmen right now.
What we do first is we always self-regulate. And so noticing and naming is we self-regulate first before we ask someone to move into an intimacy risk of what did you think of this? Or let's have a discussion in a small group. Noticing and naming what you experienced or what you're noticing just based on what you just heard is very self-regulating. So we use that first query. What did you notice with sensation and emotion? Just so people can pause, gather their thoughts, notice and name, and have that moment to track and attune to themselves. And then again, before we move to anything revelatory, any self-disclosure, any needing to be put on the spot or feel like you have to perform, what's the right answer or how is this person going to receive me? The first thing we do is we dose the field with some resource. So we're scanning for safeness, and that makes us feel more confident if we're like, oh, this is a thing that I liked and it felt good for me. So it's when we scan for safeness, we can, it's like we're soothing ourselves right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if this person doesn't receive me well, this is a thing that resources me. But it's also nice to hear what's resourcing other people. When we dose the field with more safeness, we resource everyone. Even if it's just like, oh, that person seems really nervous, but they just shared with me something they liked and then they kind of relaxed a little bit. Or they shared with me something that was resourcing, and like, I feel more relaxed because I know they're resourced. This is all kind of what's happening in the background with our attachment systems. And then we go into the intimacy risk of, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Like, what did you really think? Or what else do you know? Then we see if we want to dip the toe into more self-disclosure. So it's just a trauma-informed, very somatically based, very attachment-oriented way to enter into conversation with people.
Thank you so much, Past Carmen, for that wonderful deep dive into the purpose of these 3 questions, which we will be highlighting in the body of the episode. As always, please join the Numinous Network if you would like to participate in more events where we're practicing those questions, among other practices as well. I'll include the link to that in the show notes and the Substack as well. And also, please, if you have thoughts, reactions to our conversation, or you want to share what was resourcing for you, or the sensations and emotions, I would absolutely love to engage with listeners on the podcast's Substack. So you can go ahead and click on the link for that and leave your comments there. I would absolutely love to engage with you all on that. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with Jamie, with some special highlights from Carmen Spagnola. Well, welcome to the Stoner Story Witch, Jamie. I'm so excited
Thank you.
to have you back to talk about Heated Rivalry, to hopefully have a little bit of a somatic completion over just the mass hysteria that's taken over at least my social media algorithms and yours, I know.
Well, I suppose we can start by saying that we're not going to be giving any kind of plot synopsis or anything, because we're just going to assume you know this, and if you haven't, just go watch the show.
Yes.
And I guess the only other caveat that I told you when I was talking about being on this podcast was like, I don't want us to be like asking the question of, why do we like this? Why do straight women like this? Why do queer women like this? Like, and there's like a fine distinction for me between sort of asking that question in a like sort of confused and perplexed and bewildered tone, which I find that a lot of the like, maybe not a lot, but a good amount of the commentary that I have read about this show takes. It bugs me. But I feel like it's different than like what we are here to do, which is talk about this show and that we love it and the parts of it that we love. And I think it's just, I think the tack that a lot of these articles take is kind of like the confused, why do people like this? And I find it like kind of offensive to everyone involved. Like, it's sort of like, why would women like a sexy show? It's like, well, offensive to women. Like, women couldn't possibly like something sexy. Or like, offensive to queer people. Like, why would people like a queer show? Like, it's like offensive to gay men, offensive to the creators of this show who made this like beautiful, like objectively good work of art that people are like somehow confused as to why people like it. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from in this. But I know we have plenty to talk about of all the things we love about this show. So like, fine line, like I said.
Yes. Oh, and I didn't actually mention, so I guess I should do this now. We first ever for the Stoner Story Witch podcast is I also have some sound clips. I invited Carmen Spagnola to contribute some audio for some of the questions that I will be posing for us to be pondering, which are 3 questions that she uses a lot in the Numinous Network that I have found very helpful to try to aid having, you know, a somatic completion, to allow us to complete our feelings and specifically to be completing our feelings in the presence of another nervous system, right? Like I'm not just going to Reddit, just reading. Trust me, I've been on Reddit for this.
God bless Reddit.
This show, haven't we all? But and also, I guess I would say like my intention for this show is that for this podcast is that, you know, I'm inviting my bestie to be on a Zoom where we can look at each other and we can be talking, we can hear each other and talk about the show that we like. Why do we like it? We can receive each other's, you know, the full range of our emotional expression around it. And, you know, hopefully be able to get on with our lives because there's also because yes, I totally get what you're saying. Like it's offensive that people would be pretending to be so perplexed, but also like, holy smokes. Like I don't think I felt this way about a show since like Titanic when I was 12, you know,
yes.
I
think that's like a normal reaction to be like, I'm having a massive, like big reaction. And I also see other people having this like strangely big reaction. I think that's a natural question to ask is why am I having such a huge reaction and a strong reaction to this? Not like, why do I like this? Right. Like there is a difference there.
Why does insert identity here? Like, and then also as if straight white women are a monolith, right? But
exactly.
Like what's the, and I just like spoiler alert, I did actually pose that question to Carmen, so she will be speaking to that as well in one of our sound bites.
Perfect.
And I will also say I have already listened to the sound clips that Carmen sent, so I have a little bit of a sense of when I'm going to play those, but you haven't listened to them obviously, so we're going to do our best and hopefully the technology works itself out. But is there anything else you want to say before we just kind of like jump in?
No, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start off. So Carmen Spagnola, she obviously has come on the podcast a couple of times, and you and I have both spent, I mean, I've been on the Numinous Network for the last 4 years and you've like dipped in and out, but like we've taken her, you know, attachment courses and all of these things. So she is also, I think it's safe to say that she is, you know, she's bringing the Canadian and hockey fan perspective to this show. And I will just name that there was a meme that I saw where somebody was like, I love about this show that it's about hockey. And I will actually speak to, I have read the books. I've read the first 3 books and I've watched the show. And I don't know anything. I have not learned a single thing about hockey. And I knew really nothing about, like I knew there was a penalty box. And I knew there were face-offs, and like that's kind of it. Like there was no. It's a pretty hockey light show, even though it's very much, you know, that's the backdrop. And so I just wanted to say that because Carmen's first clip here that I'm going to share is just giving us a little bit of a context because she identifies as a hockey fan. So I'll let Carmen take it away here.
Okay, before I talk about Heated Rivalry, there are a couple things I want to say about hockey, specifically Hockey Canada, but sort of hockey in general. And I say these things as someone who grew up watching hockey, going to the arena, dating hockey players. You know, we had a huge watch party when the Canucks lost the Stanley Cup in 2011, and like Ruben and V and I all had to walk through the riots in Vancouver, like literally like past burning cop cars and looters to try to get transit back home that night. I have been a hockey fan, but I would hate for the Heated Rivalry popularity to actually lead people to think that this is like what hockey is, or like start supporting the NHL. And if you don't know about the Hockey Canada scandal from the last few years, really all you need to know is that they have been under investigation for abuse and sexual assault cases. There have been internal investigations like all the way back to the 80s. And in 2025, there was a very high profile case in Canada against hockey players who were at that time in the NHL. But they were being charged by a woman named EM for horrible sexual assault that happened a few decades ago when they were the world junior team, the Canadian junior hockey team competing in the world championships. And the judge acquitted them, saying that she was not a credible witness, basically because she was so drunk. It's just awful. And like one of them has been hired back into the NHL. A couple of others have gone to play in the Russian league, but like utterly and completely fuck the NHL and fuck Hockey Canada. And what you see in Heated Rivalry is it's hockey light, LITE. So I don't want people buying NHL merch and things like that, or like, truly, this isn't actually hockey. So I would like for people to know that. Fuck the NHL and fuck Team Canada. They have a huge history of violence, misogyny, assault, and worse, right?
You gotta love Carmen just being like, okay, let us just before we even, I just want to like locate us. I fucking didn't know this. I was like, I was like, oh, thanks, Carmen. Yeah. Thank you for enlightening me. I have been so, like I say, so not tracking anything hockey related. So that was a very like humbling, like, oh, well, and also I can't really say that I'm surprised. Like, I don't know.
No, I mean, I think anytime we're dealing with like, oh, male athletics, a patriarchal power structure, like shocking to hear that there would be abuses. Like, yeah, right. Unfortunately, like this is the setting that we are in.
Right. And like, let's just make sure that, you know, the fervor that we feel around this show is, you know, and any, you know, things that we would be supporting with our time and our money or whatever is actually like supporting organizations and things that match the values that we feel resonance from the show. And what I'm hearing her say is like, let's just uncouple hockey from Heated Rivalry. What we love about Heated Rivalry is not that it takes place in the NHL. Like that is, that's just the setting. My next question that I think Carmen talks to is addressing the sensations and emotions that we experience. Here's Carmen again.
In general, like, so you asked like what kind of sensations or experiences did I have while watching Heated Rivalry? In the big picture, I loved this example of people who are in the tension of anxious and avoidant attachment styles, that anxious and avoidant trap, where you've got this anxious character who's like very preoccupied with this relationship, and then this, you know, sort of classic trope of the rakish fellow, Ilya, who's more avoidant. And I loved how they showed, as a recovering avoidant myself, like I'm an Ilya, right? And I have been an Ilya in my 30s especially. But look, he's really just a bottled up anxious with lots of trauma and lots of responsibility who never lets himself freak out, right? And covers it with like sarcasm and humor and sex. So there's so many awesome examples that of his classic avoidant traits coming through, like when he delivers his beautiful monologue in the pedestrian tunnel there in Russia, and he says, "I'm so in love with you, and I don't know what to do." Just the like, I don't know what to do. It's just such a classic avoidant perspective on a problem. I loved it. Anyway, as I was watching the series, I actually felt tension. I felt tension and excitement and titillation. I have to say, you know, Ruben and I were watching together, and I was like, are we watching soft porn? Like, it was really, I was like, oh, wow, super smutty. Not something you see a lot. I was glad though that it's like, oh, we don't have to look at peens, you know, like, so I actually found seeing the gay sex. I know some people have found it kind of overwhelming. I've had a couple of friends tell me that. And I'm not a porn watcher, but I would assume that this is kind of similar. I don't know. But I was like, oh, okay. I actually found it very exciting. You just don't see gay eroticism on TV very often. So it's quite novel for me. I felt, though, some irritation with the episode. I can't remember which one is the episode with Scott and Kip. Is that episode 3? I found it so abrupt. Like I was getting really invested in Shane and Ilya, and then suddenly it's like, who are these people? There was no segue. Who's Scott and Kip? I found that very abrupt. So I was actually relieved when we went back pretty quickly to the Shane Ilya storyline. And so the sense of irritation and like urgency that I felt to get through the Scott and Kip episode, I was like, oh, I'm invested in the Shane and Ilya storyline. So I guess I was like, wow, it's much more than smut. I knew by then. I was like, wow, this is much more than smut.
All right, I'm gonna just pause there because I felt like that was a really decent bit that she gave. I want to say I can just go first because I think you're probably still processing. I've heard her say this, and so this is the second time I'm hearing her memos. But when compared to the books, this show was very I was not overtaken, and I'm also not a porn watcher. It was thrilling, it was titillating. I agree. And it was a novel experience. And my guess is that for people that this show was too much, I would not recommend that they read the books because
correct
the books are way more graphic in every sense of the word, and also you get a lot more of their internal emotional landscape too. So it's like in that way I would recommend the books because it's just like, oh man, you actually get to get in their heads and get into their, and you can get into a story a lot better in a book because of just the hours in that it takes for you to be reading a book versus, it's what, maybe 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours of the 6-episode series or whatever. So yeah.
And also probably less overwhelming to read the smut than to see it, I imagine.
Maybe that's true too. I guess all I mean
it's just a very different media.
I was just very I was going in being like, how are they going to possibly do this book justice? Yeah. And to her point, because they're not showing any peens, it's like you get some butts, but I don't know. It wasn't that. Yeah, that. I don't know. I think I just, having read the books, that wasn't something that particularly felt super shocking to me, and
Agreed.
also had a novel component too, because I've never really seen a gay romance shot in this way. So
yeah. And I guess just to comment on that, I think one of the beauties of this show, there is so much sex in it. But to me, and I think from what I've heard from a lot of people, it really never feels gratuitous. It never feels exploitative. It's like the sex is a huge part of the plot and literally kind of second to second or moment to moment. And the different, the way that the way they're tender to each other, the way that they touch each other, that is literally giving us information about their inner life and the propulsion of the plot. And so I think people think it's just about oh, we're basically just watching porn, but I mean, sure, I guess, but there's really so much more to it than that.
Yeah. And then it was interesting too hearing her, and again, people who've not read the books, seeing episode 3 with Scott Hunter and Kip, that 100% I could just be like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, it was jarring. I will give her that.
That it could be jarring. And I know we talked about that a little bit, even with I remember Severance did that quite a bit, where it was like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
there've been like several episodes in a row where like we haven't even seen like the Fab Four. Like, we want to go back to, we want to see the innies again. And so the fact that it was only one episode, I was like, yeah, that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And I remember in my experience of reading the book, in that big Scott and Kip kiss, that was just like, oh my God, like who the wait, like I recognized the name Scott Hunter because, you know, it was just had there not been an episode 3, you know, people would have just vaguely recognized his face or recognized his name, maybe. And so when I realized that episode 3 was going to be a deep dive into Scott and Kip, I was like, ooh, this is cool. Like, this will actually make that feel more impactful, being able to get a little bit of the backstory there. So you get a little bit of a 2-for-1.
Yeah, it's a much bigger payoff in the end. Yeah.
Oh my God. And yeah. And then upon learning that book 1 is actually Scott's story, Scott and Kip's story. And so that just felt super cute that they're able to kind of, inject an entire book in essentially, you know, 1 1/4 episodes of this series.
Yeah.
I thought was like very well done and made it, I mean, that's what made that Ep5 big kiss moment so impact. Like, that would not have landed. Nobody would have given a shit had it not been for Ep3. Had you not been like, who the fuck is this guy? And okay, I think just because we're talking about Scott and Kip, I will say that my answer to Carmen has more about sensations and emotions, but we'll listen to her in a sec. I think looking back on when I watched the show, my most like the thing that I can remember just having the most like, oh, like I guess just like a yearning, like I guess like a yearning resonance was when it was in that Ep3. I think I see more of myself in Scott or something. Like there's something when Kip is getting up and getting ready to leave, and Scott says, you know, like, what are you doing? And I'm gonna leave. Well, can you stay? And Kip says, yeah, I can stay. And then he's like, then stay, please. And then the next day, he wakes up and Kip isn't in bed with him, and there's kind of like the what the fuck, but then he hears the blender going, and then he says, I know I can be kind of intense. People tell me I'm intense, but can I just be intense right now? And so again, it's there, even conversationally, there is this like, is it okay for me to do this? Like, is it all right if I go a little bit deeper, if I bare my soul? And that's, when he implores Kip, like, can you stay? Can you be here when I come back from practice? Can you be here when I come back from my game? Like, is that too much to ask? And that is such a, I think because Shane and Ilya are like a 10-year-long situationship, there was something it felt really balanced for me. Like I liked the balance of also seeing this, this like head over heels, flurry of romance. And, we've talked a lot about romance too. And just the trope of, we get like the Cinderella story, and we also get an enemies to lovers all in the same 6 episodes. And that just felt like such a treat. And so it's so interesting that, and it makes total sense that people who haven't read the book would be like, oh my God, what the fuck with this Ep3? Like, who are these guys? Like, I don't give a shit who these guys are. But realizing what was going on, I was just like luxuriating in it. And then I then promptly read Game Changer, the book, the Scott's book, like within 2 or 3 days then after that, because it's what you got to do. I fell in love with Scott and Kip at that point.
I find it so interesting to hear different people's perspectives on episode 3, because I think it's like I think it's quite a dichotomy. Like, it's interesting to hear Carmen's take. I think mine was more along with hers, even though I have read the books. Like, and you and I have talked about like our sort of differing reactions to episode 3, and like, I think it's incredibly important. I have said to you, I think they did this correctly to have it as this like bottle episode, and like it was fabulous, whatever. And also, like, the love story of Scott and Kip, like, just will never live up to the Hollanov of it all for me personally. And so, like, I just, but I can like objectively see that it's fantastic, and it gives this like this balance to the sort of like horrendous agony of the 10-year situationship. And so, anyway, I just love hearing people's different perspectives on it, because I think I've heard many people on both sides, like it really goes both ways, like how people take to that episode.
Yeah. Do you wish to share a prominent sensation or emotion that you experienced while watching the show, or you want to play a little bit more Carmen and then you can share yours, or you want to pass? How you feeling?
I mean, I was trying to think, like, I don't know if I have like a specific moment that really stuck with me. I mean, I have multiple, and it's like really probably just the obvious ones. It's like the kiss at the end of episode 5. It's like Shane and Ilya, I love you. It's like, it's all the big moments.
Yeah.
I think my like overwhelming or sort of generalized feelings are sort of, I mean, just like heartbreaking. But then followed by elation. And just, oh my God, like, just wanting to like cry and laugh and smile in like joy all at the same time. I don't know. It's poignancy, one of our favorite emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the big ones, obviously, the kiss at the end, the fact that Ilya finally bears his soul to Shane, but it's all in Russian, so Shane can't understand it. Like
that scene.
That again, I kept so much about, as I was watching this show, I just was like, oh, it's just Romeo and Juliet, right? It's just like it's the star-crossed lovers that are like not allowed to actually be together, and there's that ultimate like miscommunication, right? This like swing and a miss, like I don't know. So maybe I'll say more about that, but okay, I'll go back to Carmen here.
I think also because when Shane first in episode 1 right away, I was like, wow, he's done a great job of this Canadian coding. Like the character was very Canadian coded to me. That's how I first read it. And then by like the 2nd episode, and certainly by the 4th, I was like, oh, he's playing this autistic. He's autistic. Everything from like how bad he was at sexting and how awkwardly he stood and like folded his clothes as he undressed. And just when Shane and Ilya were addressing each other, like Shane didn't know how to joke. He could only ever come back with "fuck you" or "you're such an asshole." And I just thought, like, there's no hockey player that I have ever known who doesn't know how to chirp. Like really. And if you don't know what hockey chirping is, for your fans who don't know about the Letterkenny universe, the Jacob Tierney, Jared Kiso universe, if you think of it on like a continuum from like wholesome to kind of like grossly hetero misogynistic, even, you would say like Heated Rivalry is in this very leftist progressive kind of end, and Letterkenny, which Jacob Tierney and Jared Kiso worked on originally, that's kind of more centrist and in the middle. And then if you put on the right the more like kind of hetero grossness, there's Shoresy. But in Letterkenny, there's a character called Shoresy who is like a junior hockey referee, and he chirps so crudely and so hilariously. And again, like it's like sometimes you get embarrassed that you find something funny or you find something entertaining. I remember the first time seeing the movie Fargo and recommending it to somebody who was like, oh my God, that was horrific. You liked that? And then I felt kind of ashamed, but I was like, oh, I thought it was really brilliant. It's the same with Letterkenny. There's some aspects to it that are so problematic to me. But then there are parts of it that are so good, and one of the parts is this character Shorzy, who's like so shocking but so hilarious. That's what hockey chirping is. That is the best hockey chirping I've ever heard in my life, and I've been around a number of hockey players when I was growing up. That's the best example. So then to go to Heated Rivalry and have this hockey player, Shane, who does not know how to chirp, who doesn't know how to have a comeback, who like his biggest chirp is like, thanks for showing up finally, or whatever, to Scott Hunter. And Scott's like, you sound like him, as though that was some kind of like harsh, sick burn. I just found it really hilarious. Pretty much right then, I was like, oh, he's playing it autistic. And even just little things, I don't know if this is in the book, I haven't read the book, but like the fact that he drinks ginger ale, because it's like, oh, he's just an anxious little guy. And so that means his tummy is often upset, you know? It was so great. And just, he's always so literal. And yeah, couldn't take a joke, didn't know how to joke, and also could not be out of integrity, which I found, especially in episode 4. That's the episode where he says to, it's called Rose, and it's like, he basically says like, don't marry Svetlana, and his eyes are welling with tears. It's like the emotional overwhelm coming to him, because he cannot be out of integrity with his true feelings. I love that so much. So I felt a lot of tension the first time watching it. I recently saw Esther Perel talking about watching Heated Rivalry for the first time with her friend who'd seen it multiple times. And even though I was like, yeah, Esther, like me and my group Heated Rivalry chat, we were all like, yeah, Esther, we know, we've been at the cottage for over a month, like welcome to the party. However, she did describe it very well, that, you know, the first time I watched it, I was so expecting the betrayals. I was so expecting to be disappointed in the people around these characters and in these characters. And then when you're not, when their friends and their family members like continue to be just like so lovely and so great. And yeah, the second time watching it, I felt a lot less tension. I felt so much excitement to get to the scenes that I loved. I felt so much pleasure at capturing even more micro expressions. I felt a lot of things. So yeah, the first time I watched it, I was really titillated by the smut. I liked the smut. I know it was a lot, but yeah, we didn't have to see any peens. And then the second time watching it, it was even more pleasurable because I didn't have the expectation of betrayal.
Yeah.
So many good things there.
Yes. Do you have things you want to just jump in and say?
I mean, I too watched the Esther Perel video, and you know, well, first of all, I want to say I do think this is like an interesting, again, sort of divergence between the people who read the book first and the people who watched the show first.
Totally.
Because the people who read the book, such as us, we knew going in there was no betrayal, there was no like terrible reveal, because we know it's romance and they get their happily ever after, right? Like that's the whole point. And so like, gosh, it would be stressful to watch it like as a person who hadn't read the book. I mean, I 100% would have expected some dramatic thing, or they would be shitty to each other at some point, and maybe they'd come back from that, but you'd still have that kind of like ick moment or whatever. But like to Esther Perel's point, like she talked about watching it in that sense where it's like every time you think that something bad is going to happen in the worst way, like what actually happens is like the best way possible that it can happen. And the like literally like somatic experience of that, she called it like a warm bath. It's like this just like incredible like release. And then especially when you go through and watch it again, knowing that won't happen, it's just like, so it's like luxuriant in a warm bath, all these good feelings. And so anyway, I loved that what she was saying about that. I also have thoughts on the autism of it all, but if you want to jump in with anything else first.
No, you can go for it.
Yeah, I love the autistic coded Shane, and that is very much like that has been confirmed that Rachel Reed, the author, intended that, and that Hudson Williams, the actor, like I believe like picked up on that in the book before he was even told that, or if he was told that by Rachel Reed. And it's very intentionally not named like in the book or the show. And oh gosh, just I think in a lot like I do identify with the character of Shane in so many of those moments. The absolute inability to shit talk, to give back like quippy responses. Like I feel like you have heard me talk about that about myself personally, like experiencing like people saying things at work and being like, I just froze. I didn't know what to say, you know? So God, that is relatable. And just yeah, all the little ticks I think make me really identify with Shane in that way. So I love that.
Yeah, you probably sent it to me, but something about how Rachel Reed was kind of basing the character of Shane off of, you know, like a loved one of hers that was autistic, and then that Hudson Williams' dad is autistic, and like so he read it and he was like, oh, this feels like this character is like my dad.
He's like, oh, it's like my dad. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I just think that's there's something really really endearing about that both the creator and the writer of the story, and then like the actor playing them, like both have, you know, dear, like that it's like it's not a caricature I guess
totally.
like it just feels like it was like done with love. And there certainly could be debates around like, well, if he's not autistic and he's playing an autistic character, couldn't you just like there yeah, like all those things are valid, but just feels like it was done like in just a really like honoring this character in his full expression and being autistic. And it felt like it was, I mean, yeah, to Carmen's point, just like very masterfully done.
Yeah. And I think also it's so beautiful to see the loved ones around him in the show, like Shane's loved ones, you know, treat him in this beautiful, like, well, eventually like autistic friendly sort of way. Like I think we see Ilya like learn this about Shane, that like, oh, he's like not really good at like picking up on my like subtle flirting and stuff like that. And Ilya eventually learning like how to comfort Shane and what he needs in those stressful moments. And just that like I guess I'll just say that like him having the diagnosis of autism and knowing that about himself, which he doesn't as a character, like is like not important, like in the sense that the people will still treat him in a loving, attuned way because they see those things about him regardless of like why that's the case.
Right. Yeah. What Carmen said and your reiteration of it, that like, oh my God, I would 100% be watching this and just waiting for the shoe to fall, waiting for them to be caught, waiting for, you know, like the big, I can relate to that because that was how I felt watching Schitt's Creek and Daniel Lee's character, like when he like came out as pansexual, and then there was that like small town mayor and I was just like, oh God, once he finds out, and then it was like everybody just like accepted that.
Yeah,
this is just like who this character is, and
that was such a beauty of that show,
like,
also.
And
yeah,
yes, and then like once you could just like accept, then you could just enjoy the show, and it felt really nice that it was like, oh, like art doesn't actually have to imitate real life when real life is a homophobic shit show, you know? And
yes.
And so I think that was one of the things that really endeared me to the show Schitt's Creek, and also like this show I think does a good job of not just like, and this is just a world where homophobia doesn't it's a very real threat that they're very conscious of, very protective of, and also our little mammalian nervous systems are not needing to witness the worst of it.
Yes.
You know, like it's like yes, we're like with them in the vigilance of it all, but then it makes sense to me why back to kind of our original question of like, oh my gosh, like the mass hysteria of this, like why I saw another meme today that was like, if like the streaming platforms have 2026 wrapped, like I'm gonna be fucked. Like just the idea of like I've been streaming this constantly, you know, because yeah, it's just like this nice warm bath, and once you know, like Carmen said, the second time she watched, she just got to enjoy it. She just got to be like, oh, isn't this so great? And so you hear about people talking about seeing this show, you know, 5, 6 dozens of times. Yep. And it's like, because you can just, like you said, luxuriate in that warm bath of all those really nice feelings. And like, oh, how good is it that Shane has people that are able to attune to him? Oh, that is so good. So good. Who doesn't want that? Yeah.
I actually have even more to say about this, because to go back to the Esther Perel thing, which is this is all related to, she also named Heated Rivalry, like the experience of watching it, as a reparative experience.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, and for all these obvious reasons, it's like, oh, there's like no like homophobic instances or like whatever, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We get the happy ending, etc. And it's also just like little moments that like that other people can relate to, straight people can relate to, just like human interactions that like go in this really endearing, nice way. And I just think I very much agree with her in this. And interestingly, I have also heard there are, of course, people who have different perspectives on this show. And, you know, I've seen people who maybe feel that the show doesn't grapple enough with like the terrible homophobia of hockey, and like that this show perhaps is like unrealistic in that sense, or that it's just sort of too Pollyanna-ish or what have you. And I just think a lot about, like, I know that you and I have talked about this idea of romance or fiction as reparative experience, and that like perhaps there is a fine line between sort of like glossing over real life, like tragic, horrific things, but also versus like reparative experience as liberation, or as this like expansion of our imagination that can change the way that like we move through the world. And I think maybe like I was trying to figure out like what is the separating factor there, and maybe you have thoughts on this, but one thing that I thought of was like, I do feel like to have the true reparative experience, I think they do in situations where that does happen, they sort of still do acknowledge the trauma of it and the terribleness of it all. Like, I don't think anyone comes away from watching Heated Rivalry thinking like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, the homophobia of hockey is no big deal. You know, like, I think we still watch it and we think like, oh shit, like the fucking, to use the word again, agony that they have been dealing with through all of this, like that is still very real. And so I think maybe that's why we can still, I don't feel like we're like bypassing that aspect of it, if that makes sense. Do you agree with that?
I do. Like, I mean, yeah, I do agree. And I know we've talked a lot about fiction. I know Dana Lynn Nichols talks about, or has said the words like liberation is collective imagination, right? And like, so many people have said like, you know, we can't build a better world if we can't first imagine a better world.
Yes.
And so it's this like, okay, yes, like I don't want to bypass anybody's very real experience of homophobia in a professional sport, you know, whatever. Absolutely. And I'm sure there are lots of nonfiction books and essays and things that can get to that. But the Adrienne Marie Brown talks about, you know, the visionary fiction. And I just think to be like, okay, this genre is visionary fiction.
Yes.
That is not so fantastical to believe that it is completely devoid of the threat of homophobia.
Yes. It's like still realistic, I think.
Yes. So again, I if nothing else, I want episodes like these also to just normalize that we can have very different experiences and still be in relationship with each other. So like, I'm not telling anybody that they are wrong for feeling very fervently that they should have done more, or they didn't they did too much. Like, I don't know. Like, we can all have our own experiences about it. And I hope that everybody can find a friend that they can talk to through these questions and be held and just be like, oh my God, yeah, it makes so much sense that you'd be upset that there's not more instances of this or more, you know, like explicit fighting the thing. But it's also just like, you know, can we also just, maybe we could have started with this, but you know, being that we're both from Minneapolis and the shit show that is going on right now in Minneapolis by the fascist dictators, like there is something nice about being able to, and I guess this is where I feel like Heated Rivalry is like that balance of, it's a little bit of escaping, but it's like, it's this resourcing, it's this luxuriating in the warm bath, but the threat is still there. Like, so it's like, what is this in service of? We are taking this warm bath so that we can be like, okay, we are in solidarity with people whose liberation is being threatened. And so like, you know, in Heated Rivalry, it's, you know, and also like, okay, sorry, I guess I'm going to go a little bit off topic. I think there's also something that's like, you know, these are multimillionaire, like, pro athletes that like, yes, certainly like when you are rich and famous, you've got a long way to fall, but like the threat of destitution is not like, they will be fine. Like homelessness, you know, like I'm not saying that like being outed and homophobia would not be like an absolute terrible thing, but I think like the majority of people watching Heated Rivalry are not multimillionaire famous people that could just be like, even if you lost your job, that would really still fucking suck. But, and also like you would still have more money than like 99% of the Heated Rivalry watchers, or, you know what I mean? And so like, there's also something to be said for like, you know, just really locating like, what is the threat? And these professional athletes, multimillionaire, like they actually do have power relative to a lot of the Heated Rivalry watchers to be able to, use their visibility, use their power, use their fame, use their money or whatever in and I mean, and I guess that's something we can just say, we have hopes and dreams for what we might see in season 2 along those lines. I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, you know, when we're talking about like the worst effects of homophobia are not happening to professional athletes. Like they're like they're disabled trans folks, you know. Like,
I suppose with the exception of like Ilya, like having to go back to Russia, like that's like objectively dangerous.
True.
But like, then again,
like,
the story grapples with that, right? The story like brings him, like they allow him a way to get citizenship, or you know what I mean? Like that is sort of part of the happy ending, is like getting him away from that danger.
Yeah, and so for everybody who loves Ilya, like remember, fuck ICE.
Right. Correct.
Anyway, so on that note, okay, that was a long tangent, but it felt good for me to say all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna shift into favorite or most resourcing moment.
My favorite or most resourcing aspect of Heated Rivalry was literally the last scene. Like the happily ever after was so corrective. Honestly, I think it healed something in me that was still kind of raw and wounded all the way back to like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Like where you're just so expecting like something terrible to happen at a moment that could be so good. Literally, it was like the straight up awesomeness of the last scene where they are being so sweet together and like holding hands and driving off into the future. That was just awesome. All of the scenes that had to do with their like straight up awesome parents and their friends. And the acting is so lovely, especially when you start to see Connor Story and Hudson Williams, Huddy Millie Willie, an agent of chaos out in the press circuit. You're like, wow, these guys are so opposite from the characters that you really appreciate it even more. Like Hudson Williams played the character more Canadian than he, as some guy from Kamloops, BC, actually sounds in real life. Like he did such a great job of that. And like the micro expressions, I know people have talked about the micro expressions, but it's just so beautiful. There's scenes, I think it's in the second episode, The Olympians, Shane kisses Ilya really softly on the lips and then on the forehead, and Ilya is like frozen for a second, just like suddenly frozen, and then he says like, I should go. and it's just such a great scene. And then the scene where Ilya does win the cup and there's this slow close up of Shane on the sofa, and if you look, like Shane's lip is trembling, and then there's like a little smile and he's welling with tears for Ilya, and everybody else is like getting up and doing stuff in the kitchen, but it's just, the trembling lip is so good. It's so good. And of course, you know, the sweet ache of you know, the texting, the getting into the elevator or the hallway or whatever when Shane leaves their date and is like, we didn't even kiss. It's so great. There's also another great micro expression where there's this whole sequence where Jacob Tierney is cutting between the two of them having like really fucking hardcore sex and playing hockey. And so there's this brief shot where like Shane goes into the corner and Ilya slams him into the boards. And if you look, I replayed it a couple times, they're both grinning at each other. And then it cuts to a scene where they're having sex and Ilya's like railing Shane from behind. It's just like a saucy kind of, it was great. And again, as like a hockey fan, I would say I love that like Shane will, you know, they're both set up as being best in the league, but not just as amazing scorers, but they actually will go into the corners, right? If you go into the corner, you're at risk of like really getting hit and really getting hurt. And so a lot of the highest scorers tend not to do that. So the fact that they both will go into the corner, I thought that was great.
Yet again, grateful for a little bit more of like the hockey fan perspective.
Yeah, that was a nice little tidbit. I learned
because
something.
like the attunement to the sport of hockey, of just being like these like the two quote like best in the league, like these big rivals. The fact that they would be like, yeah, in the corners. That's like, again, this is content, hockey content that I am still blissfully unaware of after having read 3 of these books and watching the series. I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, her explaining that makes sense, but it's just like, I don't know, I just assumed everybody like had to get a concussion. I don't know.
I loved what she was saying about the micro expressions, because
yes,
that is like, I think for me, why it's so hard to choose like one favorite scene or whatever, because to me, it's just this like generalized, like when I close my eyes and think of this show, all I think about are the micro expressions. I think of Hudson Williams' watery fucking eyes in every episode. Like listening to Carmen talk about Hudson's eyes like makes me teary. And then I also just, I think it's like the touching for me. Like I'm imagining there's a scene where they're like on video chat and Ilya wants Shane to put his glasses back on and he kind of like taps the corner of his eye, like just that little moment. I'm like, oh God, I love that. He also, I mean, Ilya, like he touches Shane's back like at certain times when they're like having sex, or the little kiss that like Hudson Williams like kisses his forehead. I feel like they're just so tender with each other, and oh man, we just like don't see enough of that. I mean, I think like we certainly see in some romance like or shows or whatever, like men being tender with women, but we never ever ever see men being tender with men. And I think that is something that just like puts a dagger into my heart. Like it just like, oh, I just love it so much. So yes.
Yes. Yeah, I think I remember you mentioning that. It's like, and then once you said that, I couldn't unsee it. Of just like, oh my God, yeah, like just how great it is seeing men being tender with other men. I remember somebody sent me the Bitches Gotta Eat Substack, and I know I sent that on to you. And I love the way they said, like, I'm watching these characters who are my biological sons and also simultaneously my husbands. And I was like, oh my God, like, yes.
That just sums it up.
It's like, oh, that is exactly how
Actually,
I
I wouldn't
feel.
even say husband. I would say like boyfriend.
Sure.
My sexy
Yes.
boyfriend.
I mean, they said husbands, but like the whole point of like, oh, like the, yeah, like the titillation of it that you wouldn't be feeling about necessarily your biological children, but then like the pride and like you're just like really rooting for them. And yeah. So my favorite moment, I really just love the tuna melt, and I don't know.
Yes.
I don't.
Have we not even talked about this?
I can't believe we haven't talked about the tuna melt. And in the podcast, I talk a lot about secure attachment and contact nutrition. It's funny that Carmen doesn't even necessarily go into contact nutrition, probably because she's like, she knows I will. But like, we build attachment through, we talked a little bit about like the micro expressions, right? Like those like little eye contacts and the vocal prosody, shared rhythm, ingestion behaviors, and safe touch, right? So yeah, like when they are stroking each other's hair, like having those tender little like kisses on the nose or things like that, of course, like that does something for us. But man, there's something about, I like how I just like the food. I love that Kip and Scott, their romance was based off of like him making him smoothies, and then like the smoothie like that was I would say the Kip and Scott is more that traditional romance. I shouldn't even necessarily call it romance. I'm like but maybe, I mean, it's not the love. Yeah. Of just, like you fall in love, and like the sex kind of is the symbol of like love is afoot.
Yeah.
And, but with Shane and Ilya, their shared rhythm for years was sex. Was, like let's call it, it's shared rhythm and like safe touch, because every time we see it's pretty like consensual, and Carmen actually talks about this a little bit in one of her ones coming up here, so I'll let her say more about that. But like then 7 years, something like that later, Ilya finally is like, I'm going to, there's a game in Boston that like Shane comes the night before, like we'll have all night. It's an afternoon game the next day. We don't even have like a morning practice. Like I'm going like, and it's premeditated, because he asks him, is the ginger ale cold enough? I was so glad that line made it into the show, because I just remember, I think I even was like, like there was such like, I read that and I was just like, he just bought that at the convenience store down the corner kind of thing. And just put it in his fridge, and like the attention to detail, like wanting to give Shane a good culinary experience, wanting to be a safe little place for him to like hang out and just like watch hockey with their clothes on in the living room, and yeah, like making him a little tuna melt. I'm gonna make myself. I was gonna make one for myself. I'll just make two. And I mean, even and again, like, this is where I would just be like, everybody read the book and read the tuna melt scene. Get a digital copy so you can just like control find, write tuna melt. You could just read this. I think it's chapter 13. Don't ask me how I know.
Yep.
But I mean, Shane even is like noticing that like the chips and pickles were like arranged very carefully on the plate. Like just I mean, and again, I guess I'm kind of cheating. I know we said that we were going to focus on the show, but I think I still had a jolt of just like, like Carmen says, like he's this like avoidant guy. And this is, I mean, that is like, I mean, again, Scott Hunter, the very same night that he and Kip hook up for the first time, gets the balls to be like, can you stay? Please stay. It takes Ilya 7 years to make Shane a fucking tuna melt and ask him to like stay. And of course, like the tender moment of them then saying each other's first name, and Shane freaks out, and that whatever, like that happened, but just that like super tenderness from Ilya of all people, right? Because there is something about him being this like kind of hardened, sarcastic exterior, but like, man, we really see like the cracks in the wall, or the
Well, and I think it's almost like he's speaking Shane's love language, not to use fucking love languages, but like it's almost like we would expect Shane to make Ilya like a perfect little organized and arranged tuna melt.
Oh, yeah.
But like we would not expect Ilya to do that to him, right? Like that's like a new development almost. Yeah.
Right, because Shane probably doesn't want any of the foods to touch,
right.
Like, which makes sense. So, oh my God, that like speaking to that level of attunement. So I just think like as somebody who has read a lot of romance, and there's this excitement at like the first time they're, the two protagonist love interests are, making out, and like the things go to the next step, and it's like, oh my gosh, like finally 2/3 of the way through the book, we're finally getting this some consummation of this attraction, and it's like having that feeling over a tuna melt was so lovely for me to read, because I think, like I say, it's interesting to me that like with Scott and Kip, it was like the rhythm of this the shared rhythm around food, like the smoothie every game day, led to this relationship that then became love and sex and whatever. And then but then with Shane and Ilya, it was this rhythm of sex and the safe touch that then led to food. And I don't know, something about that just really delights me.
Yeah, it's special. It's unique.
Yeah.
There were so many other delightful details too that I got to experience even more and even more deeply the second time I watched it. Like in that same vein of like having a cut between hockey and their lovemaking. There's a scene where you see Shane win a game, and then they cut to Ilya giving Shane a blowjob in the shower. So they have this like cute little tit for tat. There's also just some funny, like, I think it's hilarious that Jacob Tierney chose the Montreal Metros, because again, as like a hockey fan, one of my favorite memes was, it was like a picture of Shane Hollander in his Montreal Metros jersey with the cup. And it's like Habs fans watching the Montreal Metros hoist the cup 2 years in a row, which is hilarious because the Montreal Canadiens are like famously losing, like they're like one of the most losing franchises in the NHL, or at least they only go to the cup like once a decade and then very often don't. And the last time they made it to the Stanley Cup, they lost in the final. And then like the very next year, they were the last in the league with like record-setting losses and stuff. So it's just like it's such a fantasy that Jacob Tierney has created on so many different levels of like, this is what hockey could be like. I really enjoyed that. There's a lot of really cool CanCon in the show too that I appreciated a lot, like the music for sure, even something more mainstream like a classic Feist song. It was just great. And again, like Hudson Williams reading that character, he played it more Canadian than he actually is in real life. I loved it. There were other things too that seemed like beautiful parallels of them being equals. Like they're both really actually into kids and family, Shane is always tracking like Hayden and his kids and like, going to the aquarium with them, like a little like dad kid date. And then Ilya in the pool playing with all the professional players' kids. And there was a lot more delight and sweetness and kind of like inner squeal watching it, knowing that the happily ever after was coming. It's like, oh, romance genre, I'm sorry, I didn't know your game, like much respect, but the happily ever after really did feel so good.
Yeah, we love a good HEA, baby.
Yeah. Give it up for the romance genre. Let's say that.
Yes. Well, okay. You were just telling me the other day the difference between a love story and a romance.
Was that the difference between a romance and a love story is that the love story typically doesn't have a happily ever after. Like love stories often end tragically, whereas romance, it's like the entire point of the genre is the happily ever after. You will never miss it.
Yeah. And so, yes, the joy of being like, don't worry, guys, this is a romance, not a love story.
Yep.
So, yeah, them as yeah, like just great members in like a greater community. Like she said, like a little bit of like that family oriented. I think that's actually a pretty classic thing in romance too, is kind of like the idea of like, oh, like, you know, would we have kids together? Would we? And so there's like a little bit of a nod to that too, of just like seeing that like, okay, like they are both, yeah.
It's the symbol of commitment, you know.
Yes.
We've talked about this, like kids represent a lot of things in romance. And so even for child-free people such as myself, like the kid thing is not, what am I trying to say? Like, it's not unappealing in a romance still, you know, like that is, it means a lot.
Oh yeah. That even as a child-free person, you're like, you feel like, oh, yay. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mentioned the very cool way that Jacob Tierney cut between the fact that they were equals on the ice to then sex between equals. And I think this ties into like, why do straight white women love Heated Rivalry so much? And I thought this right away, and then I saw Jessica Valenti post about this on TikTok, that seeing sex between equals where there isn't inherent power dynamics is also, again, very rare for women. So I think we like that. But I also would say, like, yes, straight white women love Heated Rivalry, but I can also imagine it's like they love it, but they're also like activated by it, I think, and frustrated by it because real life masculinity is so toxic. And most partnerships and marriages are so infected with patriarchy. And so I can imagine it also leading to dissatisfaction and a kind of melancholy feeling of like, damn. And I know this not just for straight white women, but queer women as well that I've talked to who love Heated Rivalry and have been like, wow, that is not how my relationship has been. So it's pretty difficult in a patriarchal society to have real life experiences of partnership between equals, no matter your identity. I will also, though, continue to say, like, in Heated Rivalry, we are seeing male pleasure that doesn't require domination, you know, like there isn't kind of this strange humiliation game happening. And I think we love seeing Ilya be so attentive to consent. Again, because I think a lot of real life hetero partnerships are not like that, but also because that is pleasurable. Like it's just nice to be asked. And so to linger, I think Jacob Tierney did a great job of reinforcing that and lingering in that and making that not just like a box getting checked, but a personality trait of somebody who is attuning and tracking. Like you see this so much with Ilya as well. Like, so here you have this archetype of an avoidant attacher, but actually then you are seeing a very different, you see how that's such a mask because, you know, he's got his fridge stocked with ginger ale. He's asking if it's cold enough. Even at his father's funeral or his memorial, he's like scanning the table to make sure that the funereal rites are perfect. You know, the rye bread offering on the rim of the vodka, you know, for the ancestors with the medals and all of that. Like everything is perfect. And he is tracking not just Shane, but also family dynamics. And then, you know, vice versa. There's so much reciprocity. You're seeing Shane tracking Ilya's family stressors, you know, like it's a beautiful thing to see that much attunement. It's not just consent like, oh, you know,
consent needs to be ongoing, and it needs to be fully verbalized, and it needs to be, it's not just that. It's not like, oh, I've learned this. It's like depicted as a real personality trait and something that helps their relationship blossom. Isn't just like a guardrail or a box to check or something that a barrier to be a threshold to be crossed. It's a beautiful intimacy. And then seeing not only the vulnerability and intimacy between these two characters, like when they say each other's first names, oh my God, melting, but for the actors too. Like, of course, I think back to like, white women also love Brokeback Mountain, right? Because I think we like to see examples of men in the characters, the roles they're playing, but also as the actors themselves. We like seeing examples of men seeking to challenge or transcend internalized patriarchy. I think it gives us hope, that that's a thing that men can do in real life, And I would also say a lot of us straight white women watching are women of a certain age. A lot of us are parents. I think for me, speaking for myself, as the parent of a queer child, seeing depictions of a little queer autistic kid finding love and companionship, like, it's so beautiful, and it's also so relieving, when my child V first came out as gay when they were like 12, 13, it was very easy. It was so beautiful. And I didn't worry about them. And they told me it was like easy to be an advocate. I will admit, when they came out as trans a couple of years later, I was much more tense. I was so much more afraid for them, that I definitely fumbled that at first. It wasn't as good as I did the first time. But I think having parents be able to see good ways to go about this, just the unconditional love and the guilt that Shane's mom felt, that, what did I do to make you feel like you couldn't tell me? Like, I'm so sorry for that. That was beautiful. So that was great. It really was. It was very relieving and very tender and beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Oh, so much good stuff.
I remember. Yeah, I think that one definitely. What if I wasn't already crying at that scene when he's with his mom outside and she's just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry that you ever thought that I wouldn't, like, whatever, yeah, however Carmen said it, like, that you didn't think that you could even come to me, like, and I just remember being like, yes, that is the move of just of and so I think the attunement across the board of okay, I want to segue into like Kip's dad, but I put a pin in that so you can respond to, because like that's immediately where I want to go.
I guess, oh my gosh, I feel like I wanted to respond to like 3 different things. First of all, going back to what she was saying about sex between equals, I heard something, I believe this was on the Diabolical Lies podcast, but they were referencing like a TikTok or something, and somebody used the term eroticized attunement to describe, how Shane and Ilya are with each other. And sort of, they were talking about this idea that like we've basically all been conditioned to believe that a power dynamic or a power differential is necessary for eroticism, like this sort of polarity, certainly a polarity, but like I do believe power is a big part of the conditioning. And they were saying like, of course, like that is a way to be sexy. I don't think we want to discount that, but like Heated Rivalry illustrates this idea of eroticized attunement and just this like incredible attention to the other person and the details that are really what makes it sexy. It reminds me, I've been learning recently about Tantra, and like I feel like that like is Tantra, the idea of eroticized attunement. So anyway, I thought that was just an interesting idea to go along with what Carmen was saying. I also think that, so she was talking about sort of this idea of like, I don't know if she used the word grief, but that's how I would describe it, as like a grief in sort of seeing this like fantastic, lovely, attuned relationship that most of us like don't generally get from men. And that being said, I do also think that a reason that Heated Rivalry is like, makes us a little more obsessed even than plenty of other romances. Like I think we've all felt that about other romance stories, and Heated Rivalry, I think on some level actually like gets around that a little more, because it's like, you know, it's like there's no women in the story, right? So like I as a straight woman, I'm like not really able to like fully place myself in this story to and so I'm able to like I think what I'm trying to say is I experience less grief watching this like beautiful equal relationship between two men than I would watching like a beautiful fantasy equal relationship between a man and a woman. I don't know that I can really explain that. But
Yeah.
I do think that's some of the magic of Heated Rivalry. And then the last thing I wanted to say was I loved what she was saying about seeing the actors like having to like, we know that these two actors have had to have such a vulnerable relationship to play these roles, and not only that, but then they have like essentially continued this like incredibly deep friendship after the show. And it hadn't occurred to me, but like I do think that is like such a huge part of the draw. I agree with her on the Brokeback Mountain thing, like us seeing like Heath and Jake, like, you know, just having to like embody these roles is like a little bit of a reparative experience in itself, because it's like, you know, it's like obviously TV or movies is just a different medium than books, but it's like, you know, reading the book, we're like, okay, well, that's a story. That's a fantasy. But like to see it actually played out in real life and having, it's like we can see two real life men like really having this vulnerable experience with each other. Like I do think that hits yeah, like I do think that hits differently, and that is a big part of the fantasy. So anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's all I got.
Yeah. You know, I had somebody, because yeah, of course, it's like for the last 2 months, pretty much any like social event I go to, it's just like heated rivalry. Have you?
Yep.
No? Like just okay, just curious, like just like let's just like tick those boxes. And there was somebody that I spoke to, and I mean, I think they've listened to a couple of my podcast episodes, so they kind of get what I'm about. But they said, and I was like, oh yes, I think this is. They said something like, you know, it made me believe that maybe more was possible in my relationship with, and this was
Absolutely
like a cis het woman in their relationship with a cis het man, and just and being like, you know, I feel like, or they gave an instance of just like I felt, you know, like a level of confidence to assert my needs, my wants and desires, to be vulnerable, to put myself out there and ask for what I feel has been missing. And I was like, yes, like I think when we talk about like do stories resource us, and I think she's kind of alluding to, you know, whether it's the confidence with which, you know, Scott is reaching for like, can you please stay, or whether it's like, okay, like if Shane and Ilya can be this attuned to each other, then like I have to believe that, you know, I have to at least like name that, you know, like this isn't, and yes, to Carmen's point, like so many cishet relationships are just dripping in patriarchy, and unless unless the male partner has really done some serious capital W work.
Yeah.
You know, and I got a couple podcasts with my own partner that, you know, I will just further punctuate this point that like, yes, absolutely. Just the average guy that has not done any work to talk about like his patriarchal conditioning is going to not be what we see in Shane and Ilya. And so when it was so interesting when she was just like, I bet that like a lot of people get activated. And I was like, ooh, that's actually really interesting. And I hadn't thought about that because, you know, it's, it made me think of like when you have like a toothache and you just kind of like keep like sucking air through the little like, you know, spot. It's like, oh, it hurts every time but I can't stop doing it. You know, it's like, yes, you luxuriate in the warm feelings, but it can also be coupled with a yearning of like, but why can't my partner do that? Why don't I get that? And yes, because it's two men, there isn't like, why does she get it and I don't? Because you kind of just get to be this wallflower.
Yes.
That I think is a degree of separation that doesn't make me think like, oh, well, if only my hair was like hers, or if only my, because like that's again like what patriot, like, oh, well, of course she gets the guy because she, and then pick your thing. But anyway, that's a little bit of a side.
Do you know what I think, to comment on that real quick? Like, what I think is also interesting is like in Heated Rivalry, like these are not men who have done the work. They have done no work. And yet they are able to do this like amazing attunement, and like certainly they are not emotionally available for a very long time. But like the idea that like they eventually get there because they so deeply love each other or something. I think it is just kind of like, well, if these fucking hockey dudes can do this, then surely, my husband can too, or something like that. Like there's these are not therapized men, but it's like, but there's still, it is possible. I think it gives us this hope or possibility of like, well, if these men can do it, then other men can too,
Right. And then it just goes to those on the lines. Like if he wanted to, he would.
Right.
They actually could. Like they actually could, and they just don't because they can get away with it. Right.
Exactly.
So something I've learned from Carmen, it was in my facilitation training with Carmen, and I know she learned about it from Spring Up Liberatory Education, I think. But it's this concept of power mapping. And you usually would do this if there's like an actual conflict that you're kind of like trying to parse out. The whole idea is just that power isn't, there's like the intersectionalities of power. There's economic privilege, there's racial privilege, there's gender, there's ableism, there's also, citizenship status and things. But it's just like, what are the different power differentials that are at play that could contribute to whatever this conflict is? And it's not even necessarily to assign blame or responsibility to one party over the other, but to just kind of help grapple with like what are the systemic factors that are at play that are maybe flavoring what's going on here, that we can just kind of like name and acknowledge, and to just kind of like help place the conflict in its systemic context. So that's like what the skill is basically. Like, I tried to power map for both of the relationships that we see. So of course, Shane and Ilya, but also Kip and Scott. And with Kip and Scott, they're the same race. I believe they're both American, like, so citizenship and, like whatever. So a lot of those things don't necessarily matter. One is out, the other one is not, but they are both gay men. I'm pretty sure that they are both. Yeah, I know Kip is, and I'm pretty sure even from reading Game Changers, I think Scott is as well, but he's not bi. But for me, it really came down to like family support and, like socioeconomic, monetary situations. And those really kind of are the two things that really, the two elements of power that really play into it. And like, they're kind of opposites. Like if we have Kip on one side and Scott on the other, and we were to have a color that represents, if we have blue that represents family support, like it's like Kip's head and it's like Scott's feet. We could be like drawing a line, because Scott, he was orphaned at kind of a young age, and then he was kind of at like he says hockey is his family. Like that was the big speech he gives, is like, oh, like, and like hockey became a family. So this homophobic sport is your family, is where you have got your safety, your dignity, your belonging, your sense of yourself. So much of that, I think he was like, what, 11 or 12, or, so like such a formative age to just be like, okay, like hockey is my family. And then, we see that Kip is, hustling, working like 3 jobs, trying to go to grad school. And obviously, Scott Hunter is, very wealthy. And so we would have like a different color that we would be drawing from Scott's head to Kip's feet or whatever. And so it kind of just depends on when we think of the overall conflict between the two of them being like, does does Scott come out? Like, can they find their sunshine? Can they be out in the world? Like, I'm not saying that they cancel each other out or whatever, but it's just a really interesting, it's an interesting power map to look at, because I was thinking how, you know, it's so easy to look at Kip and Scott and say that it's this Cinderella story, because, you know, Scott comes in and he's, you know, he's able to just like gift him a tux and, you know, like, come just live in my luxury apartment with me. I don't know why this rubbed me the wrong way, but in the book, Scott actually cooks for Kip, but in the movie or in the show, Kip is like, I made some pasta salad, or there's some pasta salad in the fridge. And Scott's like, oh, where'd you get it from? And he's like, I made it. And it was like, I don't know. It just continued to make it seem like, I don't know, like Kip had to earn his keep or something like that. I don't know. Like, he was like continuing to kind of be this like service provider. And I really, and I think there was an element of, if I remember, sorry, big spoiler from the book, but I made a difference, because I think it was one of those things that even Scott said, like, oh, my mom taught me how to cook before she died. And so, like, you know, like he was cooking for Kip, and I've just loved that there was actually like a little bit of a reciprocal thing there too.
Yeah, like somebody's caring for Kip, you know, like it's not just like Scott's getting cared for. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and we also, and I guess, so it's because we see Kip's dad, and I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like like I would love a spinoff. I would love a fanfic. I would read, you know, like, just, how did Kip's dad get socialized to be who he is? And, like, he comes home and like he can just tell that Kip's energy is just low. Like, hey, buddy. Oh, and he's like, I'm so sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. Hey. Just all the little like merps and like, oh, hey, oh.
Oh my
That's the
God. Talk about something we
award.
don't see on TV. My God.
Oh my God. He's just like such an attuned dad who's, like, I did your dry cleaning. I did, you know, like, just. And so like that and his little Kingfisher crew are like what enable him to just be out and be confident and just be who he is. And so it's like, there's more I'm trying to convey here. So we have the Cinderella story. We have Shane and Ilya that are this Romeo and Juliet kind of, you know, star-crossed lovers, enemies to lovers. But what I think is so cool is how both of those stories actually exist in the same universe, in the same world. And so, like, the love of, you know, the Prince Charming and Cinderella rattles the foundation of the wall that is like standing in the way of the star-crossed lovers, right? It's like, because Scott and Kip have their kiss, that then we have Shane and Ilya that are like, fine, we'll go to the cottage, and then we'll actually dare to dream that we could be together. And it isn't just that Scott loves Kip, but also that Kip is confident in who he is, that he feels, like I say, he feels deserving of his own safety, dignity, and belonging as a member of the LGBT community. Again, because we see it at that community bar and with his dad. And I think what I just love is what I see, especially like having like read Game Changers and then the next book and just kind of seeing how it played out. It's like, I'm going to die on the hill that Kip is the like hero of Heated Rivalry, because it's his just joyful pride in who he is and his like deservingness to like be with somebody who's willing to, you know, like Scott literally couldn't handle even going to the art gallery thing without like, I mean, he really, really wanted to, and he wasn't ready, but like he again, like we don't know what capital W work he did, but ultimately he got there where it was like, okay, no, like this person does matter more to me than everything else that I thought mattered to me. So it's just Kip's pride, his attachment with himself, his dad, his friends is just like, it feels like it's also this David and Goliath, because it's up against like the rampant homophobia that these rich and powerful pro athletes are so scared of. But it's just little Kip. It's just little Kip that like, and also too, like just being like, actually, in what ways is Kip actually Scott's Prince Charming, right? Like in what ways was
Totally,
Scott actually
yeah.
trapped and then needed his Prince Charming? And so it's just
Absolutely.
when you think that like, oh, it's not just the money of Scott that is like the commodity. It's that security, it's that community, it's that like like self-assuredness that like,
yeah,
I'm worthy. I'm inherently worthy. Just live the life I want to live.
Yeah. And that just like reminds me of how we speak about like resistance under capitalism, because like it's like Scott is doing the individualist thing where it's like, I got my money, I got my apartment, I'm all by myself, I can make it through. But it's like it's Kip's own sense of liberation and own sense of self, as well as like his surrounding community that he is embedded in, that actually gives him like, I don't know that power is the right word, but let's say power to like really thrive in this like horrendous patriarchal system, right? So it's like, I think that community is like such a sense of power for him, whereas Scott is trying to do the like individualist capitalist thing.
Right. Yeah, and then it's just interesting like doing the same power mapping with Shane and Ilya is a little bit different, because Ilya actually is in some pretty notable, comparative to Shane, I would say, like down power kind of positions. Like if we look, okay, so like monetarily, like they're both multimillionaires, but if we were to have like money, it's like, well, Shane, you know, like he seems like maybe he gets more endorsement deals because he has like his mom that's, you know, just like helping him manage all of that. And also, like he's not supporting his family back in Russia. Obviously has more family support. I mean, the only thing that as I was mapping, I was like, the fact that Ilya is white, you know, would be something that would be like a moderately up power. But considering that, you know, like he has the language barrier, you already mentioned the citizenship and how that could play in, especially when the country is Russia. And and then obviously like the family support, like he is supporting his family, whereas, you know, like Shane doesn't realize it right away, but we notice from that like lunch scene when they're eating pasta, which is just hearing Carmen talk about like, oh, you know, he like his tummy's upset, he's like he's like just drinking ginger ale. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but like Ilya is like mowing down on pasta in this scene, and nobody ever really eats in shows, or like they like little nibbles or whatever, but I mean he is going to town. And I saw some meme that was just like, Shane's most uncomfortable family dinner is probably Ilya's most comfortable family dinner.
Yes.
And I saw that and I was like, oh my God, like no wonder he's just probably like, oh fuck yeah, pasta, I'm hungry. Like I'll just oh, like, yeah, sure, this is like tense, but obviously your parents love you. Like they're sitting down to talk. They're not raising their voices.
I'm in rest and digest mode, man. This is great. Like
yes, like and so I thought that was, again, like there's no spoilers or anything, but just like an interesting thing that even though we say that like, you know, it's among equals, and I love the way that Carmen talked about it, where it's really more about like just that there's this attunement. And again, another one of my favorite scenes is, and again, I think maybe it was better in the book, but still very good, very well acted, was like when Shane is like, oh God, like it just kind of like was all catching up to him and he got this wave of anxiety, and, you know, like Ilya, like, you know, rubbing his back or getting down eye to eye and be like, hey, like, your family's here, your boyfriend's here, we love you, we're figuring this out. Like, just, you're like, just like, can you see my eyes, can you feel my touch, can you hear my voice? Like, I love you, we all love you. Like, again, like that that attunement. And again, I think there's a something in the book where the you know, like this scene happened. I don't remember, I haven't actually rewatched the last episode in a while, so I don't know if they said this in the show also, but that there's like a comment between the mom and dad where the mom is like, man, I can hardly believe that they've been doing this since rookie season. And the dad is like, well, Now I can. You like just like seeing.
Yeah, so
how...
that's in the book. They did it differently in the show, I think, unfortunately, because I like that line from the book.
It was so good in the book.
Yeah.
But I think that scene with his mom was better. I remember seeing that in the show and being like, "Ooh, I was not prepared for this." When she like apologized.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's right.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I got Carmen has a little bit more. I think her, like anything else you want to have witnessed, she went further into micro expressions. So I can play that for us. That's our last one from Carmen, unless you have anything else you want to say before that.
No, don't think so.
Play that and then we'll be good to go.
Can I mention the micro expressions again? I was clocking this right away. I found it so awesome to see a show that is like not just like the Netflix slop that they're putting out, where it seems that some of the shows are being written by AI. They're definitely being written for like passive viewing, meaning people can be scrolling their phone and not actually looking at the screen. So they have to talk you through every single thing they're doing and state the obvious all the time, because they expect that viewers are not actually watching with their eyeballs. They're distracted and have divided attention. And this show, you could not take your eyes off it for a second, or you would miss something so important. Like the scene where Rose is sort of like breaking up with Shane gently in the restaurant. Hudson Williams acting there, again, so masterful. The way he is panicking inside, but you can only see it through the blankness of his face, the slight tension in his jaw, the way his eyes are darting around, and then the way he freezes. He's trying not to move because the tears are welling and he doesn't want them to fall. Oh, God, absolutely stunning. I think, obviously, Connor Story's speech in the pedestrian tunnel and doing like 25 pages of dialogue in this show in Russian with perfect accent, like that is absolutely masterful. I cannot wait to see both of these young guys in future roles. But I think that scene of Ilya's profession of, the internalized anxieties and stressors of the avoidant attacher, and then the profession of love, that was absolutely beautiful, like, peerless in so many ways. But I think it overshadows what what Hudson Williams has done with the character of Shane in making it so reserved and so reliant on, like he had to flatten his vocal prosody and flatten his affect so much. This is so not who he is in real life, that it was incredibly convincing as autistic to me, and as just a very beautiful, subtle, lovely, pared down performance with such emotional juice to it. It was absolutely wonderful. It was such a joy, and I'm happy for these young guys. I do hope they have really, really long and wonderful careers. Again, I love seeing Huddy Millie Willie out there at the Golden Globes, like flipping the bird to the glam bot and stuff like that, and saying "fuck AI to death" to the Golden Globes MC guy. Like, I hope that this is a new era of Hollywood, because these guys make me so sick to death of the whole, let's call it the Ocean's 11 generation, that whole generation of Gen X actors that were good, but especially, okay, I'm trending somewhere else now, but I cannot watch people who've had stuff done to their faces. And these actors would not have been able to deliver these roles if they had filler and all weird stuff in their faces. Like, it's so refreshing to watch actors with faces that move. And I really can't watch anything else. So all these people who've like had their facelifts and their fillers and their Botox, and they're kind of trying to do everything with vocal prosody. And quite frankly, I'm really done with it. I really, really enjoyed how refreshing Heated Rivalry was, because it's so not Hollywood. And I hope they can preserve that for season 2.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. I got nothing. What a way to end it.
The authenticity that those actors, it's so funny. Like as much as I do feel like an attachment for their characters, like I recognize it's a character that they're playing. And so like, I'm like intrigued at the actors that are doing it themselves, but I don't go down like, I haven't watched only the interviews that like you've sent me, but that's not how my, I don't know, like hyperfixation operates with shows like these. Like my hyperfixation is better read the books. Let's go watch more interviews of these guys. But I do the things that I've seen, these guys are just such a delight. The actors that play them are such a delight to behold.
I have to say, I think that is a big part of the like hysteria, to go back to that, because I don't always like I'm not always that interested in the actors either, even for like a show that I really like or something, but there is something really special about these two guys and their acting talents and the way that, I think it's just the way that they interact with each other and the way they are just so beautifully, authentically themselves all the time is just like so rare to see. And to Carmen's point, like I hope we get more of that. Like I hope that people in Hollywood see the reaction to not only this show but these men as humans, and that changes something.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, just like I'm just having this thought now. Before they hooked up for the very first time, they were in a promo together, and it's like they have to like skate towards each other and just like stare into each other's eyes, and then like they just start, you know, breaking, like they're laughing all the time, and they're like, okay, fine, I think we got enough. Like, you know, they were just tired and they couldn't do it anymore. Like it was just, they're not actors, they're athletes, and you're making them get like 6 inches away and stare at each other's eyes. That is mirrored in the fact that, you know, Connor Story and Hudson Williams had to get very close to naked and be very much like kind eyes and safe touch. And like, yes, I know they had some very good intimacy coordinators for this show. But like, I just imagine that doing that well would have to still just, there's no actor professional enough that wouldn't be able to build attachment with a fellow actor that you are really getting like pretty much all the way naked and doing multiple shots.
It's just, it's an attachment building activity. It's like not possible to not become attached to a person.
And so then of course it's endearing to then just like see them as like, just like this, like you said, like this beautiful friendship that's blossomed between them. And she mentioned, okay, that was the other thing that I just wanted to say. And none of us are Russian, but I am so fascinated by, you know, anytime people want to talk about like certain Russian phrases or whatever, I shouldn't say anytime. I go on the Reddit still, not very frequently, but probably more frequently than most, but not, anyway, let's call it a normal amount. I go on the Heated Rivalry Reddit, just like a normal amount. But I just saw one today that mentioned, because I was like, how did Carmen know it was 25 pages? Because just this morning I read that he had like 25 pages of Russian dialogue that he needed to learn. He had, I guess, according to people on Reddit, he had like a 2-month intensive with a dialect coach. And then during shooting, he had like 4 hours a day to get it down. And apparently like the word, you know, people are like the word choices that they use. They're like people. Okay. So somebody mentioned that it was some like Tom Hanks movie that he like supposed to be Russian. And he was having a conversation with an actor who actually, you know, like spoke fluent Russian and like acted it beautifully, and is like imploring. This Russian speaker was saying that like upon watching this huge budget production with fucking Tom Hanks, who's playing a Russian, he responds to this, like, you know, this Russian actor with basically just, you know, Russian sounding gibberish. It literally meant nothing. Like, but it is a Russian speaker. Like, it totally took me out of it, because then this guy is pretending like, you know, he's acting his little heart out and pretending like it's making sense. And he's like, but at that point, you know, like as Russians, you can't even relate to it, or because it's lost. It's lost to you. Like, so the attunement that this show is demonstrating by not a fucking high budget. I'm sure season 2 will have a bigger budget, but like, like it's not 37 days of shooting, I think I read. Like,
yeah.
And they
so
only had a
short.
hockey rink for one day. Like, if all this stuff is
wow.
but they still had like, but no, we are going to, compensate a dialect coach and like a Russian like language consultant to make sure that our script is tight, and all of these things, so that when Russians watch this show, they can be in it and they can experience it. And that Connor's story, acting his little heart out, that it's just like, oh my God, how devastating would it be to be watching that pedestrian tunnel bridge or tunnel scene?
Yeah.
And if all he was saying was just, like, of course he could be acting his little heart out and just saying gibberish. And so long as the subtitles are there, we can feel it. But like, I don't know. There was something that just really struck me about just, like the attunement to Canadian. I mean, of course it's a Canadian show. So like, but not needing to like appeal itself to, a different audience necessarily. And with the Russian, I just was, I thought that was so beautiful.
I think that this is a show where, well, we know this because Jacob Tierney has said it, but it's like, even if we didn't, you can just tell that like the people who made this show loved the story. They loved the source material. They stuck to it very closely, but also they made it so beautiful. Like, and I think that just really comes through. So I think that the Russian is like just a part of that.
Yeah. All right. This is beautiful. I feel so just settled. I feel just it feels lovely anytime we get to just chat about things and like to actually like, there's a lot of just kind of feverish, like sending you articles and memes, like we sending each other memes and things. But like, I don't know, there's always something that just feels extra sweet, or like a final, like we can finally not that we can't continue to enjoy it, but it just to like come together and have a conversation. And my hope is that any listeners just feel a little sense of somatic
resolution,
completion.
Somatic completion.
It makes so much sense that you feel the way you do, listener, about the things you love. By all means, reach out on the Substack and comment on what are some of your favorite micro expressions. Oh my gosh, that's so much of like the memes and stuff is people like, what's your favorite micro expression? And so that made so much sense too. And Carmen is like, oh my God, like to rewatch and I want to rewind this scene several times because look, they're grinning at each other after they're tackling each other. Anyway, I think, so inviting anybody to be part of the conversation over on Substack if you wish. And any other final thoughts?
No, I think we've done it. This has been great. So thanks for having me.
All right. Well, much love and bye for now.
For now.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Thank you so much to Jamie for having the conversation with me. Thank you so much to Carmen for agreeing to send me some voice memos on your month off. You guys, this woman takes the month of January off, but she graciously agreed to send me some voice notes while she was doing her horse chores. If you have not checked out her dispatch episodes on the Numinous podcast, I highly recommend those. They're just really great little, they feel like little voice memos with a friend. So I highly recommend you check those out. It was super fun to receive those from Carmen and to be able to include them on today's podcast. So thank you again, Carmen, for letting me include you into this conversation for this particular podcast. It was such a treat. And again, as always, I did my best. I did the best I could to cite the people and books and resources and all the various things that we mentioned in today's episode. So you can please check out the show notes and the Substack for those. Thank you to John Williams and Anais Mitchell for the inspiration for the theme song of the Stoner Story Witch podcast, as well as Matt Shuby and Kevin Carlo for their creative juices for the cover art and the sound editing and production. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. It is now officially eclipse season, so I am going to be taking the next 2 lunations off of releasing new podcast episodes. It's my little break, where it's not actually my break. I'm going to really be focusing in on beast mode, output mode, on my fanfic that I am working on, that I've been talking about in all my writers group episodes. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what the next month holds for the podcast and the collective. It really, I know we mentioned it very briefly, but I have to say that I really want us to all be resourced for these times of collapse and the rise of fascism and just whatever radical joy and resistance and radical resourcing of ourselves for what's ahead. I really just encourage everyone to take deep care of yourselves and one another. And with that, I will leave you with my quote from Rev. Angel Kyoto Williams that says, "Love and justice are not two. Without inner change, there can be no outer change. And without collective change, no change matters." Take good care, everyone. Bye for now. This is such a full moon in Leo episode, and don't make me explain it. I just know it is, you know? And I think it was the Wolf Parade song with the sunshine, like, give me your eyes, I need sunshine. And so, yeah, like Leo is the sign of the zodiac that the sun rules. And so, yes, just want sunshine and safety and liberation for all LGBT folks out there. That's the hope. That's the dream.